Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Dave Turretini. I run the Global Strategic Growth Programs for AWS. I'm joined by Tamara Rega, who's Director of Digital Transformation for TC Energy. And we're really excited to talk to you about large-scale migrations to AWS. And we're really excited because we find each one of the migration projects to be a really interesting puzzle. We find it to be a puzzle shaped by the specifics of your business needs and your business priorities. We find it to be a puzzle with the approach determined by the existing capabilities of your teams, your partners, and the specifics of your environment and your applications. And we find it really exciting because as we help customers execute on large-scale migrations, we see them achieve hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars of benefits as they execute depending on the scope and size of the migration project. So what we want to do is we want to give you a little bit of context. We're going to hand it to Tamara, who's going to share the approach that they took as TC Energy to successfully execute and the lessons learned as she went through that journey with her team. And then what I'll do is I'll share some lessons that we learned from hundreds of other enterprise migrations so that we translate that into methodology, approach, tooling, and capabilities for you to be successfully as you embark on similar journeys. And then we'll leave time for Q&A, both within the session, and both Tamara and I will be outside in the hallway after time runs out to answer any further questions. So as we have enjoyed talking with customers over the last couple of days and previous to that, we've seen a large number of different business drivers for why they're thinking about large-scale migrations to AWS. Probably my favorite set of customers are the ones who've already executed upon the initial large-scale migration waves, and they've seen firsthand the significant benefits and the change in culture that they can achieve by operating on the AWS platform. They've seen the infrastructure savings achieved, often exceeded, and they've seen the probably more significant time-to-market agility and innovation capabilities that the teams have achieved as they bring new features and capabilities to market in a fraction of the time that it took when they were operating on the legacy infrastructure. You see other sets of customers who are earlier in their migration journey, in their journey on AWS. And those are driven often by financial savings pressures. And when you have those, they often have a significant upcoming data center expiration for their lease. And what they're wondering is, do I want to continue to plow this money into maintaining the way I currently manage my business? Or do I want to do something different and do something more in terms of agility, innovation, and capabilities at actually often a lower cost than what I was doing with my current infrastructure? And you see a whole other set of customers motivated by specific and compelling events, often M&A, whether they want to spin something off or whether they want to acquire a company, or they have specific attributes like they're running out of capacity on their existing infrastructure, or they're concerned about some other challenges that they're facing in their environment or their infrastructure. So as we listen to these customers and understand what's driving their interest in large-scale migrations, what we want to do is help give them a proven approach and structure and methodology that they can count on to successfully execute and achieve each of these important outcomes. Across the middle, you'll see the economic savings that they can get by operating on the AWS platform. And these savings are very important, and we're going to make sure that the customers achieve the savings that they originally estimate and then can execute on. And we want the customers to use those savings opportunities, which are often hard savings, to get the justification and approval across their businesses and organizations so that they can initiate and make the commitments to the training, the partner capabilities, and the other work needed to successfully execute on the migrations. And as they structure those projects, what's really important is that we want to help the customers structure it in such a way that they're going to get the most economic benefit. Not just thinking about using it from one set of equivalent infrastructure to another one, but by investing in the training and the change management and empowering infrastructure teams to work very closely with their businesses, see the benefits about how you can change the culture and enable the teams and empower the teams to really bring things to market and think very differently about how they can help their businesses engage their customers. So we want to really help make sure customers who are engaging on these large-scale projects invest in their people, invest in the change management and the culture change. That's going to drive the top line agility and performance improvements, going to really power their businesses for a sustained period of time. And all the while, as they execute on that, we want them to take all the lessons that we've learned from all of these enterprise class migrations and utilize the proven methodology and execute in a very low risk way so that you can very confidently execute on these projects and achieve each of these business benefits that we talked about before. So as we talk about these benefits and why customers are interested in this and thinking about these projects, I'm sure a whole host of questions emerge in your minds. You're wondering, hear Dave talk about these business benefits. How do I understand what the business potential is that I can have for the specifics of my environment? How do I even know clearly what's in my environment, knowing over the last decades how my different operations teams have often rushed applications or infrastructure into place under severe business pressure to bring things to market as quickly as possible? What discovery do I need to do? How do I think about segmenting my applications and determining the sequence of my applications that's going to give me the biggest business benefit and enable me to build that experience to gain success over time, experience and capability over time to operate really successfully on these overall migrations? How do I make sure my people are engaged? How do I invest in my people? What skills are they going to need? And how do I empower them to really power my business forward and take full advantage of the cloud platform once they're operating on the cloud platform? And so, again, we've taken the experiences and the capabilities and all the lessons learned from all these migrations, and we built the methodology to do that. But before that, I wanted Tamara to share the specific approach and experiences that she had so you can benefit from her learnings. I'll then come back and talk about a broader set of experience that we have and how we're translating those learnings into the methodology, capabilities, tooling, and assets that you can use to successfully execute on your own migrations.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here and to share our story with you. Before I get into the details here, I just want to highlight a couple of things. I've been a director with our digital transformation office for a year now. It's a new department in our company. I've been with the company for 22 years, and in that time, I've mostly been in IT operations role, in infrastructure support roles. And so this journey that we've been on and this transformation that we've been on the last few years has just been a huge highlight of my career, and I know my team's careers. We're really energized about what we've been able to accomplish. Before I get into sharing with some of our secrets and how we did that, I do want to highlight that if there's anything that you need to take away today about our journey, it really is about your people. It's your teams. The teams that you have to work with, they're going to be your greatest asset through this. So the journey that I'm gonna share with you is really about a success story with the courage that came from the teams that we brought together, individuals that believed in a vision. They believed in the transformation. They knew it was going to be hard, and they went ahead and worked very hard to get to where we're at. So I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff, but it really is about the team that you can build to do this. We are an energy company, so we deliver energy to the homes every day to warm and cool your homes, to get to where you're going, allow you to cook your meals. It is all about that energy. We run a safe and reliable operations, our values in collaboration and integrity. And our company is, sorry, I keep jumping forward here. Our company is a North American company, so we're in Canada, the US, and Mexico. We have 25% of the continental demand is delivered through our company in natural gas. We have connections to the Midwest and the Gulf Coast in our liquids organization. And we have one of the largest private power sectors in Canada for power generators. We have over 7,000 employees. We probably have 12,000 end users at this point. And our company has been growing over the last several years through acquisitions, which leads us to the landscape. So our IT landscape that we started with was very risk averse. It was large. I mentioned acquisitions. We had several data centers. We had all kinds of legacy systems, legacy technologies. We were in a mode where it was a keep the lights on. We needed to maintain operations because we were growing through acquisition. We didn't have a lot of extra funding to continue to do life cycles and infrastructure. In 2017, we were in front of our executive leadership team, and we were faced with a $50 million capital investment that we needed to life cycle our facilities. And that discussion was not an easy one because, as you can imagine, we're asking for $50 million in infrastructure over the next few years, but there was no direct business value other than our word that it was really to help our reliability and operations. We were in a mode where we saw the world changing around us. We wanted a competitive advantage, but life cycling your infrastructure wasn't really going to get us to that next level of innovation. So as David's mentioning, we started to look at that data center consolidation, and we made this assumption that probably about 20 to 30% of our workloads would eventually end up in the cloud. We didn't know what that meant specifically, but we assumed that that would be a safe bet. So that led us to looking at our cloud capabilities, what there was out there for us in our organization. And we discovered very quickly that it wasn't just about cost savings through data center consolidation. We actually could get a lot more out of the cloud technologies. We could get off that treadmill. We could actually start innovating. We could bring some of those concepts to the business that we were hearing about predictive analytics and machine learning. And going to the cloud all in was actually something we realized was the only way to do it and get there faster. So that really led us to making the decision to take a bold approach, and we had kind of abandoned our data center consolidation and refocused all of our investments to go to the cloud for our commercial, our enterprise, and our corporate applications. At this point, we are on track. We'd probably still be consolidating data centers. We are doing some of that still. We're getting out of the facilities for that landscape. But we're on track. We're 86% complete by the end of this year, and next year we'll complete this cloud transition. It was rapid, it was aggressive, and that was an intentional journey that we went on. So I haven't really told you how we did it. I'm going to walk you through the next few slides that give you an indication of what that meant for us. And very specifically, these are our principles that we came up with. You might have a different flavor depending on your company and your landscape, but this was the recipe that brought us to where we're at today. We did start with the migration readiness planning that David talks about, and we did not have the insights and the knowledge to figure out how do we tackle this. So with AWS, we looked at their playbook and their framework, and that really brought us to a place with clarity. So we spent a little bit of time looking at what we needed to do and understanding it. And one of the things that we learned very quickly that set this apart, this approach, is we were going to start with security. We weren't going to start with a detailed design process, which is what we're normally used to in that traditional infrastructure. We started with security, and that kind of scared us a little bit because we weren't sure if we would get the buy-in from our security team going to the cloud. There was a lot of, this is back at the end of 2017. We had a lot of questions internally from our cloud, or from our security team, because cloud was new to us. The focus on that security step was huge. We actually built a trusting relationship with the security team, and this is one of the critical steps that we found very beneficial for us in this process, and we have their full support today. The rest of the steps kind of came together after that, and in no time we were already moving to the cloud and migrating all of our apps. In the time that we would probably have spent maybe a year traditionally building a new data center facility, we were in a matter of weeks, we had the landing zone in Amazon, and we were able to migrate. So the approach we took on the migration, it's not, I put this on the slide, this is the only path to doing a successful migration is lift and shift. That's not necessarily true for your organizations. It's 100% true if you come from an organization that has that legacy footprint. We didn't have the luxury to do application modernization through this journey. We didn't have the money at the time, and we didn't have a lot of time in our schedule. We had limited resources. So we made a very aggressive decision to just do lift and shift, and it was disciplined. Now, as much as we wanted to do that in a disciplined approach, the Cloud Allowed program was something that we came up with because, as you all know, if you have legacy landscapes, you're going to have those older technologies that you do have to do something with. So we looked at those older technologies. We're migrating to an infrastructure as a service platform in Amazon. So what we did is we created the Cloud Allowed program. So you were either in lift and shift or you were on Cloud Allowed. So you did some refactoring to get up to a standard of operations that you knew you could be successful once you got there. And now we're actually looking at modernization. So we're looking at containers and serverless, and we started down that path on investment now. And next year will be a huge focus on modernization as we wrap up the migration portion. The other thing that was key to our success was building that factory. There's lots of great partners out there that you can work with, and you really need to bring in some expertise if you don't have them in-house, and so we took that approach. We partnered with a company that had the experts in understanding migrations and understanding AWS, and they taught us. So we shadowed them in the migration. We built a factory that was very much rinse and repeat, and it helped us to get through that quicker. So the factory process, I think we've done 18 waves now of migration in our transition, and we just continue to take those same steps over and over. What that does for you is it actually helps your IS organization understand once they do one app, it's going to be the same for the second, the third, however many they support, and it becomes that much more easier. It was harder to get started on this when you're trying to educate everyone, but once you get there, it actually ends up being something that we don't even talk about anymore. It's just part of what we're doing. Everyone gets it, and we're following that same framework. So up to this point in our journey, we had done the migration readiness planning. We had partnered with a company. We selected our approach, our disciplined approach, and we needed to now focus on the rest of the IS organization. So what we did, and this is really critical, and you've probably heard this in some of the sessions this week, invest in your people, invest in your workforce. It's not just about the migration that you're going to do. It's actually something that you need to set up for continuous learning. We find now with the tools that are coming out and our world's changing around us that there's so much that you need to keep learning. So we made it fun when we set this program up. We turned it into kind of gamification. We had immersion days, hackathons, we did road shows, we did some competitions. We just really made this something that everyone could have some fun with. We gave people access to the environment so they could test out the tools. And it was really important. We invested in reInvent. Last year, we actually sent over 30 people as well. This year, I think we're actually up to 41-ish. So really important to make sure that you have a program and really make it fun, make it engaging for everyone. So the journey that we've been on is we started with that very specific cloud strategy. When we went through and started building those capabilities and started the migration, it was really at that point in the migration where we started to see that shift where people were actually embracing the technologies and wanting to learn more. So the optimization and automation that comes naturally once you're operating in the cloud was something that the teams were pulling on now. They wanted to learn it, they wanted to understand it, so that's where we're at today. It's no longer a push and trying to get everyone there. It's so exciting for everyone because they're learning how they can now innovate and really bring that value back to our organization. So innovation is a turning point for us now. It's no longer about trying to convince everyone that we should go to cloud. It's about now how do we leverage this platform and capabilities for our company. So the focus is, I'm terrible with this thing as you can see, but the focus now is about the digital pillars. So we have the foundation in cloud. We are now focused on understanding what the capabilities are through case studies that we're doing. We're still trying to do some experimentation, but we're also doing rapid prototypes that are showing us and demonstrating some of the machine learning capabilities, predictive analytics. We've got RPA in the works. So we've got all kinds of investments around these technologies that are going to give our company that competitive advantage. We believe that we're building now for the future, and it's not just about maintaining operations anymore. So the focus is that digital business. And what's been really exciting through this is, and actually working with AWS, we started to adopt their innovation practice approach. So we are doing, if you're familiar with working backwards or think big sessions, we're educating our executive leadership team. We have Art of the Possible sessions. We bring them through Amazon's innovation process so that they can start to see how they can unlock value. And if they bring those big ideas and opportunities to us, we not only have the platform, but we have the tools and capabilities to get there much faster than we've ever been able to do that before. So I'll say that this journey has been a huge highlight for my career, and where we're at and the fact that we've been able to bring tremendous value in IS to our company, and it's recognized, has been just a profound journey to be on and be part of. And the team is all sitting right here, so that's it. Okay, there you go, David.
I love the fact that the first 3 rows are filled up by the team, so it's fantastic to see. And I think it's just a great story of how business took a very decisive approach, understood the business value that the cloud would have, and then really very quickly took a lift and shift approach to fully execute their migrations, to exceed their savings, really have strong engagement by the teams and build new capabilities, and now focus on how to continue to transform their business based on the data analytics, the IoT capabilities, and the other advanced capabilities of the AWS platform. That's just one of the many, many successes that companies have had doing these large-scale migrations to AWS. Here's just a small snapshot of some other ones. You see often industry leaders who most understand the value of using the AWS platform, not just from the savings and the efficiency that it'll provide, but because of the power of engaging their people and of driving the agility and innovation that they can achieve on the AWS platform. You see companies do it at scale. You see companies like Coke bring 600 workloads to AWS in under 14 months. You see companies like Enel do over 5,000 instances in 9 months. And you think about some ramp-up curve, so you think about the speed of execution that they were achieving over the last couple of months. And now they're continuing similarly. They could think about how they can apply IoT and building new capabilities to their business now they're operating on the AWS platform. You look at a company like News Corp. I mean, if there's one company who really understands the power of data and bringing insights and information to their customers, it's News Corp. And by doing this massive consolidation and migration to AWS, they've been able to return $100 million of economic benefit to their business. And we see customer after customer achieving these kind of business benefits. To dive a little deeper, another one is Live Nation, and we'll start talking about the categories of benefits that you should be thinking about and making sure that you achieve as a business from your large-scale migrations. First one is the cost savings. They took similarly a very disciplined approach. They very rapidly lift and shifted. They achieved a double-digit, I think 18% annualized savings based on that. And then what they did is they rapidly optimized the platform, right-sizing the capacity, often taking out expensive middleware and replacing that to get their savings well above 50% on an annualized basis. They did detailed studies after completing the migrations to see what are their teams capable of doing once they're operating and using the full capabilities of the platform. And they saw a 50% reduction in the traditional IT operations task and be able to redeploy those tasks, again, to help their business where it matters much more. And they saw a huge improvement, and this is something we consistently see across our customers as they migrate to AWS, in this case going up from 99.9% availability to exponentially impressively important improvement of 99.999. And it's not because their applications are any less complex when they operate on AWS. It's because they have the consistency in how they've deployed it on the infrastructure. They have the transparency and the tooling and the monitoring, deep capabilities across the AWS platform. And they have the power through that dynamic infrastructure to be able to make the adjustments as they start seeing issues emerge and being able to address them before there's any impact on their customers or operations. So that's what drives a huge improvements on availability. Other major companies have said, I didn't even know and anticipate that improvement in uptime, and I would have done the large-scale migration just because of that. And that was even gravy because I wasn't even thinking about that when I initiated the project. And then all the more important that we keep talking about is the benefits of that business agility and being able to harness the advanced capabilities on the platform. So what have we learned and how are we helping our customers take the experiences and lessons learned from all of these migrations that we've been talking about, and then applying that to you to help you be successful on your progress. And we've really invested in 5 major areas, the most important of which is the methodology. These are not simple projects, and we want to make sure that we give you an approach and methodology that you're going to be successful in executing on. So we've, again, watched all these migrations. We've invested deeply with partners in our ProServe, and we've figured out how a good structured approach is that customers can be successful. We'll talk about that in a minute. We've looked at the tooling and capabilities that customers need to be really efficient and effective to diagnose their current environments, determine what the optimal sequence of migrations are, execute on those migrations, and then optimize afterwards. And we've continued developing it. We've seen third-party companies continue to develop it as they've seen a huge market emerge. And we've done acquisitions where we didn't have enough capabilities and weren't bringing those to market fast enough so that we could provide you those capabilities oftentimes for free. We've worked closely with partners, establishing common standards for what it means to be successful, to making sure when a customer signs up for a large-scale migration and they work with one of the AWS migration competency partners, that they can be confident that they're going to be successful in achieving the project, and in terms of shaping what the customer should be able to expect from that project engagement. And that's been work done with our professional services teams. And similarly with our training teams, when we started this a couple of years ago, we looked at the training that was available to the customers, and there was actually a conspicuous gap in the training that was going to help customers achieve their large-scale migrations. So we built out specific training curriculum, and we'll talk more about that to help you understand what the roles are in the future state as you migrate to AWS, and then provide the specific training to your teams so they can build the capabilities to be really successful. And this is the approach that we encourage our customers to take. We encourage our customers to do very efficient and informed assessments, really on 2 dimensions. The first is, let's understand the specifics of your environment so that you can understand what the savings potential is on AWS, what you're currently utilizing, and what the parameters are that you can be shaping your migration on. We acquired TSO to be able to offer that to you for free. It's a very efficient tool. It's an agentless tool that does the discovery. It helps determine what infrastructure that you have deployed. It comes back to you with utilization and all kinds of important information about what that infrastructure is, and it determines what the resulting spend will be, and based on the industry average is what the current spend are, so that you can understand what the annual savings opportunity will be from migrating to AWS. So it helps you really learn about your infrastructure, determine what that spend will be, and estimate those savings. And again, we've acquired that company to give it to you for free, so you can do that and make a fact-driven assessment by yourself. Similarly, the other assessment that's really important is your people and your organizational and your technology readiness. And we've both built online self-service tooling that you can use to diagnose that. We've also developed a free half-day engagement structured on your organizational and technical readiness with 58 structured questions, so you can really identify the specific gaps and what you need to be investing in so that you can be ready to execute on your large-scale migration. And that's what that second phase really represents, is once you've done those diagnostics and you determine the specific areas where you need to build some further capabilities, then you'll have some targeted projects with our partners or our ProServe teams to help build that capability. And in parallel, you'll build a more refined migration plan so that you're ready to execute. And by the time you finish that second stage, you'll have the organizational readiness, the technical readiness, the security capabilities, some initial migration experience, and a plan that you can execute so that as you go to the third phase and start your large-scale migrations, you can be confident that you're going to be successful in those and quickly ramp those up to achieve your execution goals. And as you complete your migrations to AWS, we're going to make sure you do the right sizing, the cost optimization, and the things like that to make sure that you're squeezing every penny out of the AWS platform and achieving the full savings opportunities that you were looking at when you started thinking about your migrations. And so as you start thinking through that journey, what are a couple key things that really drive the success of our customers? And the most important and the most consistently significant one is having a strong executive sponsor. And it's to the extent where if we talk to a customer who's thinking about doing a large-scale migration, and we start probing on whether they have a strong executive sponsor who's going to be committed to that migration, help resolve any issues that come up. If it's not clear who that executive sponsor is, we actually ask the customer to hold off on doing that large-scale migration, do something much smaller, build the conviction, experience, and results within your organization. Once you have that and you've built and cultivated that executive sponsorship who's going to stand up there, set the targets, and make sure you're going to be successful helping overcome any issues, at that time, that's when you want to start executing your large-scale migration. So that's a super important part, and the person who sets that vision, the goals, the ambition, and helps resolve any issues. And second, you want to build a plan. That plan really needs to be fine-tuned based on the specifics of your business priorities. But it can also leverage the categories that we see consistently as driving the business benefits. And we've talked about some of these, but you want to be clear on what these outcomes are so that you can shape the structure of your projects and the sequencing, and also inform the combination of lift and shift and refactoring that you're going to want to execute on to achieve the specific business outcomes that you've identified up front. So again, you want to secure these based on the operational costs. Even more significant, but sometimes harder to quantify, is that significant increase in developer productivity. Consistently, when customers have gone back and evaluated what that is and often signed up for additional migration projects, they've estimated somewhere between a 50% and 100% increase in the developer productivity. That cost avoidance, as Tamara mentioned, there's a $50 million emerging CapEx refresh cycle. And basically, the business was really wondering whether that was going to be the best use of $50 million or whether they want to be much more effective with that investment. The operational resilience and the business agility benefits. So as you plan for these and you understand where the step functions are of your infrastructure cost, we want to make sure that you're setting your migration plan so that you can not just achieve the successful deployment onto AWS, but understand your cost structure, and so you're taking out the full workloads needed to achieve some of those step functions of cost. You don't want an 80% empty data center. You want to get that last workload out so you can close that data center and achieve the full financial benefit of doing that. And so once you build that migration plan, then you want to build the foundation for success. And the first and foremost is about the people. The people and the change management is the number one determinant of success. The technical challenges that our customer faces at this point with the vast migration experience that we've built up, except for some really older technologies like mainframes and some really dated infrastructure, we found a way to migrate the vast majority of workloads really successfully. The real make or break for the migrations is the change management, the engagement of the people, so that the teams understand that they have a continued and future success as you migrate to AWS, and they're excited and contribute to that project versus being reluctant to see what's going to happen. So invest in your people, diagnose the skills, and again, we have specific training classes and analyses that can help you do that. And then build a communication plan that recognizes the hard work and the successes that your teams achieve as you're progressing through that migration, communicating that not only for the motivation of the teams, but also to engage the business stakeholders and other stakeholders that you have as a business to continue driving the excitement about that project until you complete it and can turn to the advanced modernization that Tamara was talking about before. And we can give you specific guidance as you build the capabilities across your teams. You want to start off small. Like with all migration projects, don't overanalyze what the specific design will be across all of your applications. Understand the full scope of your migration opportunity, and then start diagnosing where you want to get started. Start small, build an initial set of experience with your teams. Use Cloud Endure, for example, to migrate a set of applications. And then identify a small number of people in each of the critical teams. That's the leadership. You want a strong executive sponsor like we talked about before. And you want specific people within your infrastructure teams, your security teams, and your operations teams who are accountable for the success in each of those categories for the migrations. And you start very small and you get those teams engaged and you have the initial waves of migration. And as you want to broaden and accelerate those, then you're going to go forward to the next set of expanding that teams to expand your CCOE, often federate that within the different business units so that you don't have a central choke point. And again, we have specific experience that can help you understand what the CCOE is that you should design and install at any given point. We have job profiles and kind of recommendations about what profiles of people are, and give you an understanding of what those triggers are that you should be thinking about to expand your CCOE based on the complexity of the applications and the ambition for your next phase of migrations. And as you build those people, as Tamir was mentioned, really make it fun. Like use scoreboards, use competition. There's nothing like a scoreboard that shows the progress against goals across the different units, showing how much money each one of them has saved to unlock friendly competition within the business teams, and also kind of name and shame the ones who aren't doing as much and put them in contrast to the ones who've leaned into it and are driving substantial business results. So as you embark on the next phase and you've built those foundational capabilities, what you want to do is you want to understand your environment. And again, there's a series of best-in-class tooling that we can help you with, help you identify whether it's AWS or third party, where most customers start off with disconnected instead of incomplete data. And there's advanced toolings that really help you understand the interconnections and the dependencies between your applications. And the strong guidance that we give you is use these tools to determine, for example, the network dependencies and which of your applications are talking to each other, because then what you want to do is you want to group those specific applications into specific migration waves, move each of those applications over one chunk at a time, and so that you don't introduce any undesirable latency or performance issues as you migrate those applications forward. So tools such as risk networks does a great job of defining what the network dependencies are between your applications so that you can determine what the patterns are and what the sequence of applications that you want to move to your environment, as well as the resulting cost and the other outcomes that are listed here. Tamara hit on this earlier, but you have a range of different choices for how you want to migrate your workloads to AWS. I'll quickly scan through them and then I'll give you advice. So the first one is, top one is lift and shift. Easiest and most efficient and scalable way. And with the addition of VMware on AWS, like basically it's just you almost practically vMotion that over to AWS and makes it super easy. So you can do the lift and shift. Next one below that is lift and do targeted replatforming. With very small work, you can actually achieve substantial savings. Sometimes applications are deployed on expensive middleware, for example, not because the application needs that middleware, but because that was the current practice of the team at the time. You can replace that with cloud-native capabilities at a fraction of the cost without actually having to go back and do any significant redesign of the application. So that's what we call replatform. Repurchase in the SaaS-based model is another compelling way that customers move a lot of their workloads from the current way that it's operated, actually taking off all the burden from your company to manage that application and give it to the SaaS provider and get a lot of agility and nimbleness out of that. Pretty much all those companies have deployed on AWS, so it's kind of a win-win, and we're happy to see that and help that to help our customers from that dimension as well. And then often, re-architecture is needed for some types of applications or the ones that are most business differentiated for you. And then as you go through and progress through your applications, you'll see a surprising number, somewhere between 5 and 15%, that as you go through and ask the business teams and application teams to validate the performance, they'll say, oh, don't worry about that. I haven't used that application for a couple of years. So you can retire a solid 5 to 15% of your inventory, making it very easy and substantially increasing the savings that you have. And then a small portion, like I talked about, for the legacy technologies, you're going to want to maintain that on-prem until we have the technical capabilities to be able to support those environments in AWS. So the strong guidance here, based on the interaction with CIOs, is that the ones who focus too much on application redevelopment came back and said, I wish I'd done more lift and shift. Because what happened is they looked back 10, 12 months later, they really haven't achieved much because they've been focusing on redeveloping applications, which is time-consuming and intensive. They haven't shown much business results. And what they wish they had done is they'd focused much more on driven lift and shift to get that momentum, to achieve those step functions of savings, to get their teams engaged, show those proof points, and get that access to the AWS platform across the teams, and then focused on the 20, 30% of the applications which really drive business differentiation. Like we find a solid for our customers, they typically report 70% of the applications or ones that you just need to continue operating, but that it's not worth going back and further redeveloping that application. But on the other hand, there's a really critical 20, 30% that define your customer experience, that give you operational advantage, that give you significant efficiencies as a company. Those are the ones that you want to focus on. And you can either refactor those applications as you bring them over to AWS, or you can sweep them all over in a lift and shift manner, achieve those savings, and then use those savings and access to the world-class tooling and development capabilities on AWS to further develop that application on AWS. But get that momentum, lift and shift as much as possible, get those savings, and get those experience within your company. And one of the things that we did is we looked at the tools that were available. We found that there was a lot of different tools out there in the marketplace. And we found that our customers actually experienced a fair amount of delay trying to figure out which one of those tools was the best one. And second, they were often pretty expensive. So the tools to automate the migration of those applications sometimes cost $100 to $150 a server. That really adds up when you look at a large-scale migration. So we went ahead and we purchased and acquired Cloud Endure, and we offer that to you free now to give you that highly automated, non-disruptive, low-risk, and very efficient way of migrating your workloads at scale to AWS. And we're developing and acquiring companies across each one of these different stages so we can make your migration project across each of these stages as efficient, low cost, and successful as possible. Similarly, just as you've had options to self-manage the infrastructure on AWS in very efficient ways, or engage partners who have fantastic managed services capabilities, we've also introduced AWS Managed Services. It introduces a highly automated approach to help you manage the patching, incident management, and the kind of basic maintenance of your infrastructure so that you can focus on the higher value activities on top of that. And when it's been done, it's been designed in the most rigorous PCI, HIPAA, and financial services-driven compliant environments. So it's already been engineered to the most compliant and secure environments. And we've designed it in such a way that you can either use that while you're migrating to provide that capacity, enable your teams to focus on higher value services and capabilities, or you can use that temporarily while you're migrating, and then as your teams build more experience and capability on AWS, we can roll back the managed services and hand over the operations of the infrastructure to your team, who have then been exposed to the world-class patterns from a compliance and security practices, and then be very efficient as they manage the infrastructure on AWS. And this is just a small list of the many partners, both on the tooling side and the consulting side, who have built deep migration experience and capabilities to help you throughout your journey, whether it's on the assessment, the planning, the execution, or the optimization part of the journey. And sorry, it keeps flipping. For the customers who are looking at large-scale migrations, we built a migration acceleration program to really help you design and accelerate your large-scale migrations in a very structured three-step approach that really help you do the assessment, identify the areas you need to build those capabilities, identify what the opportunity that you have based on those insights, do the preparation so you're really successful and ready to execute and achieve your objectives, and then sail through in a series of migration waves, achieve those benefits and build the capabilities within your organization, and do that at a really large scale in a very rapid and proven way. We've developed training and certification capability. And what this does is it really helps you understand what the roles are and the skills that you'll need in the future state once you migrate at scale to AWS across the different types of functions that you need to operate on there. And then for each of those different functions, what the team does is then it looks at the existing capabilities that most of our customers have, and it helps you have specific training paths for the people in those existing roles so that they can train and develop themselves to be effective and compelling in those new roles operating in the new world. And then what you want to do is you want to expose that to your teams, give them those training opportunities, and help them develop and build capability and be really excited about the migration as they progress. And as you can see across each of our stages, whether it's from professional services, managed services, training, partners, there's a huge investments across our building the capabilities and approaches to help you become efficient and successful as you do your migrations. And you can tap into this entire ecosystem of capability as you engage on these projects. So we're really happy to have shared that overview with you. Now we have 15 minutes left. We'll shift it over to Q&A. So if you could use either of the two microphones, then that would be great. Other option is we'll stay up here, and just feel free to come up to us if you have questions. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I've got one for you. So,
thank you. Go ahead.
Of everything that you've laid out, I mean, if you tell me it worked out perfectly, I'm going to say you're lying. So where did you stumble? What were some of the gotchas that you came across as you went through your process?
So I missed the first part of that. Was some of the gotchas?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm assuming it didn't go 100% perfectly. There must have been one or two stumbling blocks along the way. So what were they, and how did you get around that?
I would say, and it's still a challenge for us for some of the older applications that we're just not in a position to tackle the upgrades at this point. So they would take a significant investment to the tune of $1 to $2 million to re-platform those. So there are a couple of instances like that where we just had to renegotiate and reduce our footprint for those. And the reason why the one slide had 99% is I don't ever think we'll get to 100%, but we accepted that. And we made sure that we looked at and exhausted all options to try to get to the cloud. And for those that financially it didn't make sense, then we've made the decision and put them in a support environment that we are planning to move away from, so low-level support. And hopefully we'll have a plan for those next year to address them.
Okay, thanks.
Sir.
So my organization right now, they're kind of waffling on this topic because they're evaluating a couple different cloud providers. So my question is, do you think you can be successful doing this in kind of a multi-cloud environment, or do you think you really need to dive into one and just kind of embrace one platform? I guess it's more of a question for the lady up here.
I have strong opinions on this, Dave.
Yes, better go ahead.
So first of all, I do think that in the future, there's going to be services that we would all end up in a multi-cloud situation. However, when you're going to embark on this type of transformation, you're going to want to pick one. And the reason for that is because of the organizational change and the skills and capabilities that you absolutely need to build in your teams. If you have multiple cloud solutions, I mean, I look back at how incredibly difficult it was for us to go from not knowing anything to where we're at today. And so bringing a team together to really get them to embrace one, it made it very clear, and it was very obvious where we were all marching in the same direction. So I don't think you start in a multi-cloud environment. I think in the future, if you want to go there for certain reasons, for certain business reasons, but essentially you pick one that's going to work for you, and you need to go with one.
And that's what I've seen as a successful approach across customers. Fully recognize customers are going to want multi-cloud environments. Have different teams use different clouds. Don't ask each team to then engineer to lowest common denominator and forsake the capabilities of a platform, and even have to operate and learn two different sets of environments. You're just adding further challenge and work to your teams who already have a significant challenge. Go ahead and define two different environments that you're going to go to on different clouds, and allow each team to then focus on being successful in their own approach. Well, super. Well, again, thank you very much. We'll hang out and happy to take any questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you.